Hey guys, so what you're about to see is an interview between myself and a YouTuber, GoodBadFlicks. Unfortunately, when we were recording, only his audio came through, so we're going to have these title cards for the questions I asked. Sorry if that's distracting at all, but that's the only way we can do it. So yeah, thanks for watching.
Well, originally, this was back in probably mid to late 2009. There was like the rise of video game reviewers, and kind of spurred on by it started with the Angry Video Game Nerd, who was doing video game content, but he also was doing a little bit of movie content, and then other people were doing stuff like that, and the majority of it I felt was negative. I thought that people were really coming at things negatively, and I'm like a pretty positive guy. And there were a lot of movies that I liked that I was seeing just outright trashed. And so I was working at the time as a video editor, and I had talked to a couple of my friends, and I was like, "Hey, you guys, if I started doing a video series where I talked about movies that no one's ever heard of that I think are pretty fun, would you be willing to watch?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, definitely." So I started working on things. I was trying to figure out what to do, and I'm kind of meticulous. So my first episode I planned on having out around Christmas time in 2009. And it was a Christmas episode. It was for a movie called Don't Open Till Christmas. It was a horror movie about a guy in a Santa Claus outfit. And or I'm sorry, it was a guy who was going around murdering people dressed up like mall Santas. And because it took so long to figure out a name and do all that stuff, the episode didn't end up coming out until March. So, so I put the video out there, and then after that, I started putting out that. I did Shopping Mall, I did Society, I did a bunch of other movies, and I started noticing that people other than my friends were watching them and were talking to me about them. And originally, I did it on a channel on a site called Blip.tv. They were YouTube's biggest competitor at the time. And that was where a lot of other people who did this kind of content were. There were people like Nostalgia Critic, for example. He was, big on there because he got kicked off of YouTube. And eventually it got to a point where I had noticed that it was becoming very stifling at Blip. Like they just did not have the reach that YouTube did, and so I decided to make the transition over and started putting. After about a year and a half of putting stuff on Blip, I started putting them on YouTube, and that's when things really started to take off. I got a lot more recognition, but I was still doing it like part time. I was still working, full time as an editor, and then doing this on the weekends. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Whenever I do something like that, a lot of people are just, "Oh, you're being contrarian. You're just going after what's popular, and you're defending garbage." And I'm like, "No, I'm really just giving my honest opinion." I'm like, I didn't say that Fury Road was a bad movie. I just said, for me personally, it didn't work for me. And when you go and you look in the comments, there's a lot of people that also are like, "Oh my God, thank you. I thought I was the only one." And "Oh my God, this movie was terrible and I didn't like it." And it's funny because I love post-apocalyptic movies, and I love the Mad Max movies. And Fury Road, like it was very good looking, but it I don't know, it didn't. Just hold on a second. It just didn't work for me. And so I just gave my honest opinion. I'm like, I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm just saying that I didn't like it. And there are a lot of movies where I'll be honest. Like I am incredibly honest to a flaw almost, where I'll say, look, this is the movie that I liked. This is something that I reviewed. I went to see. It might not be for everybody, and I'll talk about why, like, I enjoyed it versus something else. And also, I do like to specify, like when things are like genuinely deserving of praise. A movie like Saving Private Ryan or something, for example. Like that is a fantastically made war movie. It's really good. It's well acted. It's well directed. Amazing special effects, and like that is of a higher echelon. And whenever I say that a movie is good, when I'm talking about something like Sorority Babes versus the Slime Bowl-orama, I'm not putting it on the same tier as that. I'm simply saying that, hey, if you like really cheesy B movies of this sort, you're going to have a lot of fun when you watch this. Versus if you're going to see something and expecting like Oscar caliber material. In general, horror, and if you want to go like into subgenres and stuff, I'd say like horror exploitation films. There's just something endearing about them, and majority of them, even if they're bad, like I find them entertaining. Well, I don't want to give that away because I'm actually working on my personal top 100 films of all time, and that should be out sometime. Yes, yes. You want to? I mean, that's going to be like a 10-part series because I'm going to break it down, in blocks of 10, and put that up. I've been working on that for a while, and I think it's going to. I was talking to somebody about this the other day, and they're like, I really want to see this, but I know there's going to be a lot of times where I'm like, yes, I agree, and boo, what are you talking about? Yeah, absolutely. Hollywood in general, they kind of they've kind of been succeeding and in spite of themselves. I think to a certain degree, I don't remember who said it, but it was a fairly prominent director, somebody like Spielberg or somebody did an article and was talking about how things like Netflix and whatnot are hurting movies, but not in the way that you think of. Like you get a lot of people, a lot of directors or a lot of people in Hollywood that are like, oh, they're giving away too much or they're ruining it. And it's like, no, what they're doing is they're giving a better experience. People don't want to go and spend a ton of money to go to the movie theaters to see movies on like an outdated screen with outdated material on a broken chair with people that are on their cell phones that can't stop talking. The floors are sticky when they can stay at home, turn on Netflix or Amazon Prime or Hulu or whatever, and watch whatever they want on a huge screen TV and crystal clear visuals with great sound. Nobody's bothering them unless they kind of open themselves up to it. So that's the thing. Like I'm lucky that the movie theater nearby me is they just like completely overhauled it. So they've got really nice digital projection screen. They've got the big comfy chairs that recline, great sound. And for the most part, there's been a decrease in people that will take out their cell phone during the movie or will talk during the movie, and so that was really nice because I had stopped going to the movies for a while because of that, because I'm like, why am I going to pay all this money to go and not be able to enjoy the movie? And so Hollywood was looking at ways to increase their income instead of looking into ways to decrease the amount of money that they're spending on films. Like there are all these movies that are coming out that are 150, 200, 300 million dollar productions, and they end up, because of that and then marketing and all the payoffs and everything that they have to do, they end up I think the one was like I think with the second Avengers movie, they said they had to make like $1 billion to like break even. And like, that's not a sustainable thing. So they keep putting these things out and they keep adding things on like 3D that nobody wants. And they keep upping the ticket price. And all that's doing is getting people more and more inclined to just stay home and not go out to the theater. And they need to look at ways to lower the cost of movies. Like look at just recently, Blumhouse, I think, who I'd criticized in the past, but I criticized them simply because I thought that they were one of the upcoming studios that had the most potential. And thankfully, I mean, I don't know if they ever saw my video. I doubt it, but they've gotten a lot better because they got smart. Their whole thing was they were going to spend somewhere between $3 to $5 million per film, and you can almost guarantee you're going to make that money back. And the thing is, they're making smaller films, and they're focusing on the writing, and they're focusing on the performances, and they're making huge amounts of money. Like Get Out was a huge hit. Split was a huge hit. The Visit was a huge hit. And so they're making all these small movies that are just making massive amounts of bank. And there was a movie that came out not too long ago from a different company, 47 Meters Down, and that ended up costing a little under $5 million, and it ended up I think grossing like 40 some million. And people were oh, that movie bombed. No, it didn't. It's a small movie, and therefore it doesn't have to make $1 billion in order for it to be successful. And I think that's what a lot of people are forgetting, is that there are still smaller movies that aren't these gigantic, massive blockbusters. They don't need to make, over $100 million and billions of dollars in order to be a hit. And Hollywood needs to look at that. I mean, I understand the big need for tentpole films, but Paramount is one of the biggest villains of this. They recently I don't remember what movie it was. I was doing a video on a while ago, but they were originally, it was going to be released by Paramount, but Paramount dropped them because they said from now on, we're only focusing on blockbuster tentpole movies. We're only focusing on movies that are $100 million or more. And that's hurting them because they put out the last Star Trek, which didn't do that well. And there were the last Transformers underperformed. And there are all these movies that they in the past have done really well. But it's like there's only so many times you can do those kind of films for that dollar amount that they're going to continue to be successful. And they need the smaller movies that will usually, like it used to be, the small movies would fuel the big movies. But now they expect the big movies to fuel everything. Oh boy. How much time you got? I'll try to be brief. I am I'm in the middle of fixing messes from all of this. It started in March, but yeah, as you said, we're still feeling the shockwaves of it. I think that the fallout right now is a large part of what started back in March with the whole New York Times article about PewDiePie. And what I don't understand is YouTube doesn't seem to quite grasp the amount of power that they have. They kind of keep flailing around. They are the second most viewed channel on the internet. And the amount of money that they're charging per ad versus what you would charge for television is monumentally lower. And the reach that they have blows TV out of the water. So instead of leveraging that to be like, hey, advertisers come to us, here's our rates. It's they're bending the knee to the advertisers who are like, hey, here's what we're willing to pay you. And when the adpocalypse thing happened and the advertisers were leaving in droves, instead of courting different advertisers and new advertisers being like, look, hey, these guys are leaving, but look at all this data we have. Like YouTube is I saw somebody say it the other way, and it's perfect. They are a vampiric sucking life form when it comes to your data. They know everything about you. They can target ads directly to you specifically every time you watch a video. So instead of going out and talking to advertisers and be like, hey, come work with us, we will make sure that your ads are seen in front of your audience. Whereas on television or in movies and whatnot, that's not really guaranteed. Here we have all this information. We know this person specifically, so we can send them the ad that we know will hit them. And instead of that, they're just like, please come back. They drop their ad rates. They put in all of these things so that advertisers can pick and choose like what they want to put their ads in front of. And a lot of things, it doesn't make any sense. Recently, there's a big thing going out where people that got their entire channels demonetized. I'm going through it myself right now. You have to appeal all of your videos. And a lot of, things are coming back saying that one of the reasons why your video was demonetized was because under the new guidelines, your videos have to be viewable by someone 5 years old and under. And that doesn't make any sense, because to create material that's going to attract a 5-year-old kid to watch your videos. They're not the ones that are buying things. You're going to run beer ads and R-rated movie ads and car ads and appliance ads for a 5-year-old? Like, it's ridiculous. And if they're going to go under the guise of, well, the parents are watching it with the kids, no, they're not. A lot of times parents, I have friends of mine that did this. My son's too young. He's not watching anything besides the Disney Channel right now. But a lot of parents give their kids internet time. Hey, you could sit down and watch YouTube. And they have it, set up to where they can't, go off and watch, porn or anything. But they'll be like, and a lot of times the kids are just watching like Minecraft videos. So it's not even like the adults are watching the ads. It's the kids that are sitting there and they're watching the ads before their favorite content creator. And they're really just, they're flailing around right now, and they're making a lot of mistakes, and they're going to screw over a lot of people. A lot of people are starting to get incredibly fed up with them and are hoping for something else to come along. And there's other startups that are VidMe, there's Minds, there's other companies that are coming on. And I think that's the other thing too, is that YouTube doesn't have any straight up competition. They don't have anyone who really is hurting them besides themselves. I would say, as far as like genuine filmmaker, I love John Carpenter. I think that he's just a great director. I mean, he puts so much into his movies. I mean, he gets into every facet of the production. He works with Alan Howarth on the music, and I mean, he just does great work. And it's just such a shame that he more or less got ousted from Hollywood, because at the time, when his movies were constantly like, they were they wouldn't do well in theaters, but then they would be massive hits on home video, and they would be recognized as some of the greatest movies ever. And he had continuously gotten screwed over on a lot of his productions, and now he kind of was like, his last like real movie, I guess you could say, was like he was hired as like a gun for hire. Like, he didn't write, he didn't really do any of the work, he just directed. And that was The Ward, and that didn't really go over so well. And I think that's like, we need to get like one more great John Carpenter movie out at least before he can just officially retire. But he still wants to make movies, but like, it's just under Hollywood's new rules, he can't. It's not, he doesn't want to use an abundance of CG. He doesn't want to do the quick cut editing, and I think that he's just having a hard time getting his stuff made. And it's funny because he would go to producers movie I really want to do, and they're like, no, but we'll give you X amount of millions of dollars to make a remake of Big Trouble in Little China or They Live or something. And it's like, well, his stuff has obviously proved itself in the past. Like, why can't he just do something now? And it's just frustrating. So he's really big. And I also I genuinely love Kevin Smith, because he was the guy who inspired me to want to get into film in some capacity. I'm a big fan of his way of talking and his way of just like when I saw Clerks, I was like, oh my God, this is how like me and my friends are. Like we sit around and talk movies and throw a bunch of dirty jokes around, and he's now at the point in his career where he's got enough money bankrolled and enough studios that are willing to give him X amount of dollars that he's just making like whatever he makes. And I know a lot of people are complaining about, oh my God, all his new movies, they suck. They're terrible. Tusk and Yoga Hosers. And I'm like, look, he's at a point where he's not really making the movies for any particular audience. He's just making them. And like, he's experimenting, he's doing what he thinks is fun, what is interesting, what is keeping him going. And it's finding the audience instead of having to go out and locate the audiences coming to him and watching these movies and enjoying them or disenjoy. It's just funny that I have an argument with, not an argument, but a disagreement with somebody about yoga hosers and, oh my God, why this is nepotism, this is horrible, why would he make this pile of crap? It's like, well, he didn't make that for you, he made that for him and his daughter, and so that he could work with Johnny Depp and his daughter. They kind of did it like they were having fun, and there was a studio that was willing to give them $5 million, I think, to make this movie, and he had fun with it. And he didn't take it to major movie theaters. If you saw it, you had to either rent it or go to one of his like road visits where he would take the film around, like the old road shows. And it was just like, it's like he's not sending it to theaters and expecting people to like it. He's more or less saying, hey, if you want to see this, you can come and check it out. So I like Kevin. I like him a lot. And I hope one day to meet him, because I know a lot of people who have met him said that he is the genuine article, that he's really as cool as you think he is. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, when he talked about it in one of his video, he does the spoken word things. I think it was the second one that he put on DVD. But he was talking about Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. They were sleeping on his couch, like they were homeless. They were living with him, and I believe. I don't think he was married yet. I think he was just living with his girlfriend who became his wife. But and like they were just like there, and he was putting them in his movies, and he was putting he was putting them in his movies. He was putting them in stuff like that. And then when he was doing the spots for MTV, he did a bunch of like little shorts for MTV around the Mallrats era. He was putting them in that. And yeah, they managed to take that and they wrote Good Will Hunting, and they went off and they became, big stars. And I mean, Ben Affleck was just Batman, for crying out loud. And he when he was in Daredevil, Kevin did, I think that was in his third spoken word, where he was talking about how he managed to get Ben Affleck to work on I'm totally blanking on the name of the movie. Jersey Girl. Yeah, how he basically got him to work on Jersey Girl like after Daredevil for like next to nothing. And like he and people they don't ask it anymore, but Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, they kept kind of jumping back and doing Kevin Smith movies and working with him. And, Kevin was in Daredevil and whatnot. And it was like Entertainment Tonight or somebody was like, when are you, more or less, I'm paraphrasing, but it was like, more or less, when are you going to drop this loser? When are you going to stop doing, working with him? And both of them were like, he like gave us a place to live, and we wouldn't have a career if not for him. They're like, we'll work with him for the rest of our lives, essentially. If he wants us to help him with something, we're going to help him out. And I like that. I like that loyalty, because that's one thing that you really don't see in Hollywood these days. Is there's a lot of people that will just turn on you in a minute. And I like that they're friends, and now they're big stars, and they're still friends. I am really, really, really big on Adam Wingard. I think that he like came out. I had seen him on there was a anthology series called VHS, and he was one of the guys that did one of the shorts on there, and I liked it. I was like, wow, that was really cool. And then he did a movie called You're Next, which was a fantastic home invasion horror film. And I was like, okay, you have my attention. And that ended up being my second favorite movie of the year. And then shortly after that, in 2014, he did a movie called The Guest. And that came very close to being my number one film of the year. It was just a phenomenal movie. And I was like, okay, You're Next was really good. and the guest was just, oh my god, if this dude was able to get this good, in a couple of years, then what's he going to do next? And unfortunately, his next movie, they did the Blair Witch reboot sequel, which I didn't particularly care for, but I saw what they were going for, but it wasn't really enough to kind of tarnish what they had done. I still think that he's got a lot of potential. I just don't think that it's in that, like, I like his original stuff better than him trying to do remakes and or follow-ups and whatnot. So I think that he's a newcomer that has a lot of potential. I really, really loved his stuff. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he does next. I also liked David Robert Mitchell, who did It Follows. I think that he's got a lot of potential there to continue. I can't wait to see what he does next. Robert Eggers, who did The Witch, I think that he was just phenomenal. I think that was a great movie, and I know he's currently working on another movie right now with Anya Taylor-Joy, who was in The Witch. She was also just in Split, so I'm really looking forward to that. I like Ty West a lot. He did The Innkeepers. He did The House of the Devil. Just really good. And there's one guy I have to look up real quick because I'm blanking on his name. Let's see. Mike Flanagan. Can't believe I forgot Mike Flanagan. Mike Flanagan, he did Hush, he did Oculus, he did Ouija 2, which I think, like, I hated the first Ouija movie. Like, I thought it was one of the worst movies of the year. And when I heard that when I first heard they were doing the sequel, I was like, oh God, why would they do a sequel to that? And then I looked, I was like, oh, because it made a ton of money. So then I heard that Mike Flanagan was involved, and I'm like, okay, wow, all right, this could work. And he did it and knocked it out of the park. So I'm like, all right, this guy, like, he's good, because I've seen everything that he's done so far, and they've all been good. Like, they've all been genuinely good. I think Hush is probably my favorite thing that he's done, which, if you haven't seen it, it's really, really good movie. It's about a woman who is deaf, and she's dealing with she's living, like, on her own in this house, like, out in the middle of nowhere, and she's attacked by this guy who's trying to break into her house. And it's really good. It's really creepy. They did a great job of how, there were many scenes where she's sitting there in the house and she's working on her typewriter, or she's working on her computer typewriter. She's working on her computer, and the guy is standing behind her, and she has no idea. And it's just really, really creepy. So, great movie. Most likely horror comedy. I have a bunch of scripts written that will probably never happen, but one can always hope. I think with me, like, the best I could describe what I would like to do is something like a horror movie meets Clerks would probably be, what I would try to sell it as, because I have a lot of Kevin Smith's, like, wisecracker humor. I grew up during that time, more or less. So that's, in the part of the late editions of Gen X. And so I kind of identify with that. My friends are all talking about movies and talking about video games and talking about, making movie references and dick jokes. And I also am a big fan of horror. And so I would like to do something that was very kind of self-referential. It would be not like Scream, but like, sort of a bunch of more or less wisecrackers versus something. So I have a lot of, I have a few scripts written, and most of them, I don't know, they probably would need a lot of polish now because I haven't written in a while, but I wrote them like years and years ago. And I still think they have potential, but that would definitely be my genre of choice to start out, would definitely be a horror comedy. Absolutely. One of the things that always gets me about horror, and one of the reasons why I get annoyed in general, especially in, like, the film community and a lot of the young filmmakers, is they'll turn their nose up at horror. Oh, horror. And it's like, go back and look at how many famous actors and directors got their start in horror. Charlize Theron, Francis Ford Coppola, Oliver Stone. Like there are, as you Peter Jackson, so many people that are huge now got their start in horror because you learn a lot when you're making a horror film. And I think that people will jump into, they want to make something dramatic or they want to make something and the thing is, you really need to know the ins and outs of filmmaking to be able to make an effective drama. Because if you're a young filmmaker and you're just starting out and trying to make a drama, more than likely you're going to bore the audience to death. And so you need to make that horror film and learn and take that and then maybe go and make your drama. But you need to know the ins and outs of editing and filmmaking and lighting and all that stuff first, and know how to cut different angles and know when, all right, well, this dramatic scene where somebody's talking and it's really great, it needs to be cut down. It's too much. The audience is going to start tuning out. I might think it's, oh my God, look at this brilliant performance. But the audience is going to take it and just be like, oh God, they're still talking. So you really need to know how to make it engaging. So by doing a horror film, you can kind of learn the beats and learn a lot and learn what your audience likes, or should I say what the audience, because you don't have an audience yet, but and then maybe take that information and then go make your great drama.